The good news is that rookie wide receivers are shining in training camp, but the bad news is that Justin Herbert is injured, and it looks like Sam Darnold is going to be Justin Jefferson's quarterback this season. Gross. We discussed the latest headlines coming out of training camp on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm writing about fantasy, betting, and the NFL for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Football is back. MLB is in full swing. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. We have lots of news coming out of camp. Some bad news. Like, let's just start with the Justin Herbert injury. So it's plantar. How do you say this?
Fasciitis.
Yeah, we're both struggling.
It's not good for your foot, however you say it.
Yes. Dealing with a foot injury. And he's had trouble staying healthy these last couple of years. He is expected to be back by week 1, but I mean, he has a whole new group of wide receivers, right? And we wanted him to build this strong connection with Ladd McConkey and build a stronger connection than what he had last year with Quentin Johnston. And it's not great. He's going to miss most of training camp.
Yeah, this kind of reminds us of the Joe Burrow injury that we had, right? I mean, it was brushed off as being minor, but what happened? He was a little out of sync. He was slow out of the gate producing, and then at the end of the season, he wasn't available because he got hurt. So we can't brush off any injury to any of these significant players because this is no joke. I mean, a foot injury, a guy that's pretty mobile and big and needs to move around a little bit to operate in this offense, I mean, that's going to hamper him quite a bit. They're going to take their time. And you're right. He's missing valuable reps with a whole bunch of new receivers. I mean, he's got Josh Palmer. Okay. But they blew up everything else at wide receiver and tight end. Quentin Johnston, as you said, like basically a throwaway rookie year. So trying to get on the same page as these guys. McConkey's a rookie. You've got all these random tight ends here in the mix that he's got to kind of build chemistry with as veterans. New backfield. The offensive line is also a little bit different, so the protections are changing a little bit with Joe Alt in there. So there are a lot of things to process. I know Justin Herbert is an extremely intelligent player, and I think the mental reps or whatever you want to call it, the aspect of the game he's going to have down. My concern is the physical, just being able to move and execute the Greg Roman offense with the right mobility early in the season. And then on top of that, I mean, he's pretty low. We know he's going around QB 17, QB 18. We're not really highly invested in Justin Herbert because of the nature of this offense. We know that it's going to be run-heavy offense. We're going to try to get the defense back on track. So I think all this says for me, I don't think I was in on Justin Herbert at all this year. I think I'm out here because, again, if he's running slow out of the gate, that's not a big factor. That's a big thing that's missing from a Roman offense. So I'm out on Herbert. Unfortunately, just the atmosphere, the receivers, the way this offense is going, his injury just don't add up to what I'm looking for in a quarterback. And we've talked about so many better values a lot later in the draft and a lot before him. So I think you have to be out on Justin Herbert now as much as you can. And this might be the injury being the exclamation point on it.
Yeah, too many things are piling up on him. We were already scared from the offense, a new system. His playmakers gone, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Gerald Everett and Austin Eckler. Like, there's too many things now. And then also this injury. I was, like you said, we already weren't excited to draft him, but now I'm officially there's really no reason to take that risk of, counting on him to be good in fantasy, especially earlier on in the season. Now, Sam Darnold is taking all of the starting snaps at practice for the Vikings. The latest reports is that J.J. McCarthy has not yet taken any snaps with the first team. So it looks like they're just going to hand Sam Darnold this job. Now, who knows how long he keeps it for, right? But does this change your outlook on Justin Jefferson's season at all? Because right now he's going 5th overall. And I'd say, like, if Kirk Cousins was still here, he'd probably be going second overall, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe even competing with Christian McCaffrey for 101. So is his cost already built in that we're worried about his quarterback and we shouldn't be pushing him down further? If it's Sam Darnold, like, what does this news do for you?
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold, the one thing that has gone back to his time with the Jets and carried over to his other teams, including the Panthers and even the 49ers last year, he's a very good practice quarterback. He does the things you want as a coach in practice when taking the reps. But when the lights come on, the games count, Sam Darnold starts to play like a backup, and he just gets this kind of deer in headlights look and just is not looking there right at all. I mean, this is where we saw seeing ghosts and all that kind of stuff with Sam Darnold. He just isn't good when the games actually count. So, and you look at the schedule, it's brutal early in the season. I thought that you might see McCarthy in after early bye. Might be longer than that at this point. I mean, they just may not want to put out McCarthy to take some lumps here if he's not ready with the grasp mentally and physically of this offense. So I don't think it does too much for Justin Jefferson. I think it kind of hurts the extra receivers, but I think that was going to be the case anyway, because you either had a kind of a middling, kind of now journeyman backup type who's going to be a bridge guy, or you're going to have an inexperienced rookie. So we know that coming in, and we built that in, I think, to Justin Jefferson's cost. I think the talent level of Justin Jefferson is just too high, but it may make you think twice about, do we want to invest too much in Jordan Addison across our leagues? What do we think about TJ Hawkinson? I think Hawkinson might be okay because he would be kind of the veteran security blanket for either quarterback. So I think he would be okay, but you might pause on Jordan Addison. You might pause on this offense in general, that it may not live up to maybe the expectations and ceiling that you could have with Kevin O'Connell, the way we were used to it with Kirk Cousins. So I wouldn't panic too much. Again, if Sam Darnold is the better quarterback right now and is the guy more capable of getting any of these receivers the ball, he has to be out there. We just have to kind of work with that a little bit. When we're looking at Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow and CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott, I think that's a fair factor to consider here at quarterback when we're weighing Jefferson.
Yeah, Sam Darnold's just been the absolute worst quarterback in the league since he's entered the league, and all the stats say that. But also, like, we're in an area he really, really struggles is downfield passes, and that's just 10 plus air yards. And that's where
Yeah.
so much of Justin Jefferson's production has come from. Cousins was one of the absolute best passers in that area. While Darnold is just, he's terrible everywhere, but that's a big one. And then also already in camp, Kevin O'Connell saying, like, I want Sam Darnold to be looking to throw deeper more often. Like, it's just a lot of checkdowns. So Justin Jefferson's going to get peppered with targets, no matter who the quarterback is. And it just depends on how valuable those targets are. And also, I think his touchdown upside is really low. Now, I wouldn't push him down too far. But Jamar Chase, like, if Chase is back practicing soon here, he gets his contract. I'm just going to take Chase over Jefferson. There's
Yeah.
no reason to take that risk. But what about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson? Like, do you just go to Amon-Ra St. Brown because you know his system, you know his quarterback, you feel safer, or you just take the guy who is the better talent in Justin Jefferson?
Well, yeah, Justin Jefferson might be the better talent, but Amon-Ra St. Brown has a massive importance to his offense, and the production was there last year. He started scoring touchdowns, and he has no variables. He's got the same quarterback, Jared Goff. This receiving core, you might see a little bit more from Jameson Williams, but it's still him and Sam Laporta working the field inside quite a bit. He's in his prime. He got paid. And there's still Ben Johnson there to lead the offense. So there's nothing that doesn't carry over from last year when Amon-Ra went off. And look, Justin Jefferson, there's a little bit of durability there. We know that from last year, that we're concerned with. Amon-Ra has just been a warrior here since he's come in the league. He's taken it over and just unheralded. He's kind of playing with a chip on his shoulder. So it's hard to say a guy that's lining up in the slot is more appealing than Justin Jefferson, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is like a Cooper Kupp type slot at times, right? I think he has that kind of ceiling. Does Amon-Ra St. Brown have the ability to finish top wide receiver in scoring? Absolutely. So if you consider that and you like him, I don't think it's crazy. I think you have a case for Chase, you have a case for Lamb, and you have a case for St. Brown, all being better picks than Jefferson if the situation continues.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into wide receivers and all the news surrounding them, especially the rookies, because they are getting a lot of hype. And then we have an injury to DeAndre Hopkins. So we'll
Yeah.
discuss that as well after we hear from one of our sponsors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. So we were expecting Malik Nabers and Marvin Harrison, to do their thing immediately and to be their team's number one wide receivers. But luckily it's happening, right? All the reports are like so shiny for them. Like they are absolutely impressing in camp. The report coming out from Marvin Harrison Jr. is that he's already made his mark on this team and established himself as a top weapon. And it looks like Kyler Murray and him have already built a really strong connection. While the news on Malik Nabers is that over the first week of practice, he routinely made highlight-worthy plays and is the focal point of the passing attack. You love to hear that, and it makes me feel very good about drafting either of these guys. Now, Marvin Harrison's going super early in drafts, but is Malik Nabers being overlooked here? Like, should he be going earlier in drafts, or are we just too scared of Daniel Jones in this Giants offense?
Yeah, it's kind of a similar question we're asking with Justin Jefferson and Sam Darnold. How much do we weigh the quarterback play with the receiver? And I think it factors in a little bit, but we know talent wins out over most situations. And we've seen players such as DeAndre Hopkins, who just did get hurt, or Amari Cooper, guys that can produce with any type of quarterback you throw out there. And the good thing about both Harrison and Nabers is there's such a disparity and drop off and question mark to the second wide receiver in each situation. I know Michael Wilson has made some plays. The Giants have some familiar guys, including Darius Slayton, but they have a clear alpha in both situations. They don't necessarily have a lot else at the position. So when you look at that, that says these guys are going to dominate targets, and the quarterbacks are going to get the ball into their hands as much as possible because they're smart quarterbacks, at least, right? Darnold and Jones are going to say, we're going to get it into hands of Jefferson and Nabers, and Kyler Murray already knows that. He had DeAndre Hopkins, and he just kept feeding him, right? And he had big years with Murray. So I'm not too worried about the Jones situation. It looks like you're seeing Nabers doing and saying all the right things. He's not worried about his quarterback as much anymore, and he's going to get open. He's going to make it a lot easier for Daniel Jones to find someone to make plays all over the field. So Harrison is still way ahead to me as wide receiver one, but Nabers is having a lot more appeal as a wide receiver two.
Listen, like, I know maybe we're worried about Daniel Jones a little bit, but he is that quarterback that has a strong enough arm, maybe a little inaccurate, but he's also the type of quarterback that hasn't had a true wide receiver one, right? And
Yeah.
we're so worried about Stephon Diggs going to the Bills because Josh Allen and wow, Stephon Diggs makes Josh Allen a better passer. We're so worried about AJ Brown going to the Eagles to play with Jalen Hurts because he was inconsistent. Wow, AJ Brown made Jalen Hurts a better passer. It's like, oh yeah, true wide receiver ones with talent make quarterbacks better. So I'm all in on Malik Nabers. I actually almost
Yeah.
had him in my wide receiver values, the best values. It's
Mhm.
really hard though to put that risk on a wide receiver like that to give him a value. But I think him sitting there at 53rd overall, going behind guys like Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs and DJ Moore and Devonta Smith might make sense there, but like Malik Nabers, I think is a really good value, and I think he could help people win leagues this year. So I'm excited about him. I will have him on some of my teams. Now, Rome Odunze, the 9th overall pick for the Bears, he's making big plays with Caleb Williams, and he is like really impressing people in camp, and he keeps making these big plays. He's lower in drafts because he has to play with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. But could Rome Odunze be really good for fantasy still, even playing with those guys? And he's being drafted 97th overall after a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, are we just overlooking him? Should he be going higher?
Yeah, I mean, the concern is where all the targets going to come from, because they
Or could he
actually,
just be that big play guy where he doesn't need
yeah, he
so
could be a
much?
big play guy, but has that worked too much for Jameson Williams, in a similar role in lesser? But again, Keenan Allen is old. Keep that in mind. And he's broken down and gotten hurt. So if he's hurt, I mean, that's going to change the whole perspective on Odunze. And I think he's a guy that you want to stash as a wide receiver 4, because if anything happens to Moore or Allen, he's just going to go off. And they do have quite a few mouths to feed between Allen and Moore. Odunze, DeAndre Swift, we know, is a good receiver out of the backfield. Cole Kmet is not going to totally go away from the equation here. And they actually added Gerald Everett, who's a good receiver at tight end as well. So there's going to be some competition for targets. But Odunze, you're right. He's going to have to come through in enough big plays to have some value. But he's got great upside as wide receiver 4. Hopkins, this is maybe a good transition there. What upside does Hopkins have if you take him in the back end, or even Calvin Ridley? I mean, it's limited there for the Titans, but the Bears are going to be a good offense. They're going to put up more points. Caleb Williams is going to spread the ball around. He has good chemistry as a fellow first-round rookie with Odunze. So there's an opportunity there. So I think he's an excellent wide receiver 4 stash. I don't think you can take him higher than that, because, again, probably can DJ Moore as wide receiver 2, maybe Allen in that mix as well. It's hard to support that many guys in an offense. But one injury, he's golden. I mean, he's going to step in and be involved all over the field. And what I like about him, he has a little bit of versatility. So if they had to move around him or DJ Moore in the slot, if Allen goes down, that's going to be good for his targets and production. So, yeah, high upside wide receiver 4. Nabers, I think I more liked as a wide receiver 3, but now I think you're going to have to pay top 24 cost to get him in relation to Odunze.
Yeah. Hopkins, by the way, he got injured. He's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Maybe that pushes up Calvin Ridley a little bit to start the year, but I was already out on Hopkins anyway, so that doesn't really change anything with me there with fantasy. I will say, though, I'm taking Rome Odunze over Chris Godwin, who's going 20 picks earlier,
Yeah.
Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins for sure, Christian Watson. That's who's going around. That's just craziness. I understand he has a lot of target competition, but he's extremely, extremely talented.
Yeah.
Like top 10 in the NFL draft. I get it. We're worried about target share, but especially if you're in a standard league and you don't have to worry about PPR and other guys getting so many targets. If you're in a standard league, I do think Odunze could put up a lot of touchdowns this year. Moving on, the Colts wide receiver room. So my boy, Josh Downs, I was excited about him this offseason. He's looking great in practice. He looks like he has a wide receiver 2 role locked down. It doesn't even seem like it's a competition. Rookie AD Mitchell, his reports are up and down. Lately, he's been struggling. Alec Pierce is actually currently leading Mitchell in the wide receiver battle, according to The Athletic. So it seems like Josh Downs has taken a huge step forward. Shane Steichen, the head coach for the Colts, has said he made significant growth from year 1 to year 2. He's doing everything right. He's making a ton of plays for them in practice. So I like Josh Downs. It seems like he has a very strong connection with Anthony Richardson this year. I like him late in drafts.
Yeah, he has nice wide receiver 3 potential here. Also, looking at that situation, Pierce and Mitchell, if neither is kind of pulling away from the other, then I'm not into either as a factor here. So you have a lot of Michael Pittman Jr. You have a lot of Downs, and we're still figuring out tight end. I know in this podcast we like Jelani Woods, but there's still a little bit of crowd there that Woods is going to have to overcome. There's not much of a crowd there for what you can do inside with Josh Downs. I think he's just going to be all over the field, get open quickly. He's going to be maybe the volume guy that sees a lot of targets. Hopefully this develops into some kind of combination that we had in Philadelphia with Shane Steichen that developed with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. That would be a real upside scenario. I mean, I would even take something developing to the level of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett at this point. I mean, I think there's that potential because they have similar skill sets in terms of one guy's the big guy, one guy's the quicker inside guy. So I think that combination could really be nice here for Anthony Richardson. And we like Richardson a lot, right? I mean, he's going way high there in the top quarterbacks in the top half, QB5, QB6. You can't just have it on running alone and Michael Pittman. It's got to be other guys producing. So, again, the logic would say Downs needs to be a big part of what they're going to do in the passing game.
And his draft range, I mean, he's going behind Romeo Dobbs and Jerry Jeudy and Jacoby Myers, taking
No.
him over all of those guys for sure. Another guy he's going behind is Khalil Shakir, who I would love to know your thoughts on, if you're deciding between Downs or Shakir, because the reports coming out of camp from The Athletic about Shakir is he's been one of the most consistent, dependable players in Bill's training camp. We know Shakir led this team in receptions and receiving yards from weeks 8 through 18. He was a big part of their game, especially when Joe Brady took over. However, that didn't turn into fantasy points because even during that span, just using the time where he led the team, he's still wide receiver 51 in points per game during that span. I'm going to take the upside of Josh Downs over Khalil Shakir, but what would you do?
Yeah, it's getting very confusing for me with the Bills wide receivers. I mean, you hear the buzz about Keon Coleman, but then you have Curtis Samuel, who can do a lot of things Shakir can do. I mean, a dependable guy if you want to throw in short situations. And we've heard about the two tight end sets with Dawson Knox out there. How many reliable guys? And what does reliable mean, right? A guy that's going to get open if you throw to him and make a play, right? Does that mean however high volume what we're looking for? It's just a mishmash that I don't trust yet totally with the Bills, but I can see how it's kind of clear with the Colts, where you look at Pittman Downs, and that's where it's going to go with the targets, where I'm not sure how the targets are going to be divvied up between all the Bills targets. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Dalton Kincaid has a good chance to lead them, but I'm not sure after that. Coleman, Samuel, is it Knox as they go more in this direction? Is it Cook out of the backfield with a lot of short passes? I don't know. So I think there's a lot more ambiguity about that pecking order. I like Shakir. He could be a very good reality player for them, but that may not add up to a lot of the fantasy value we're looking for. And he doesn't have the upside that Downs does, because Downs is a big playmaker. Shakir can do that, but I think the way they're using him doesn't scream a lot of big plays for Shakir.
Yeah. We're going to get into a running back news. Now, there's some good news, some injury news, and then also one tight end who we may be just completely ignoring that could have a big season. We'll hit on all of that to finish up today's episode.
I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop, and they're not stopping with the Olympics and a lot of stuff that's going on now through the summer. NBA and NHL playoffs are gone. We're just waiting here. We want the real NFL action to start. We did have the Hall of Fame game to give us a little taste of that action. We'll have college football soon, and we do have fewer games now, but the games are going to increase. The sports may not be sportsing like we want them to, but FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. You have so many things you can look at: futures for the NFL, preseason week 1, all kinds of action there to get in on now. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers waiting for NFL season with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. There's a lot of baseball action you can get into, and that's great because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Again, check out FanDuel.com for a lot of great betting action now before NFL season. All right, we'll close the show looking at some running back news and notes from training camp, but just a reminder on the network. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NFL Scouting podcast. The draft dudes, Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, taking you inside the front office, making a smarter NFL fan every single day. Stay up to date on training camp and physical battles as the season draws near. Locked On NFL Scouting is available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, let's continue to scout out training camp from the fantasy perspective. Let's go to Denver and see what's going on with Sean Payton. A lot of buzz on what's going on with the Broncos offense. Bo Nix looks like he might be the starter, but Javonte Williams getting talked up a lot here. This backfield, we're not sure what to do. Do you trust Sean Payton now kind of gleaning and kind of glitzing with what Javonte Williams can do this season?
Listen, he can get the majority of the carries and he can look better. My issue is I don't think this offense is going to be great, right? I don't know how many scoring opportunities Javonte Williams will have. And also, he's not the pass catching back. So if you don't have that, plus you're already on a bad offense. Like, that's two things I'm out on. Like, the reason why we're still okay with Ramondre Stevenson, because I think the Patriots and the Broncos might be the two worst offenses in the league this year. we're okay with Ramondre Stevenson because he could lead the team in targets. Like Javonte Williams is not getting close to that. So I still am not like excited to have him, but he's going so late in drafts. I mean, he is going right next to Brian Robinson Jr., who also has a very similar role as he will. And Javonte Williams could see more touches than Brian Robinson. So, if you're in need of a wide running back 4, running back 3, just some depth there, I'm okay with it. I just don't think he's going to be an exciting pick.
Yeah, I don't mind him as an RB3 that I can hope and will into an RB2, right? I think that's the ideal scenario. If Williams can get enough touches there, put it together, and have some scoring opportunities, there's potential because Julian McLaughlin's small. We know that. And Samaje Perine and some of the others they have. Audric Estime is still trying to get up to speed through his injury. So I think there is an opportunity there, but we can't guarantee the touches, and that's hard right now. We want Javonte Williams to get all the touches, but it's not going to happen. Now, the other truly buzzy player from Broncos camp, I feel like this is the land of 2 guys we buzzed about at one point, and I totally forgot about them, Adam Troutman and Greg Dulcich. It's like somebody's got to catch the ball at tight end, and we love Dulcich coming out of UCLA. He was an athletic star.
Last year, I was talking of Dulcich like no other, and then he only played 2 games because he got the
he gets hurt all the time. That's a problem, I think.
He got the hamstring injury, but it sounds like, Sean Payton is super high on him. They want him to be a part of this, and he is a huge part of their offense in training camp right now. I was talking him up last year, right? Because he was going into his second season. The first year, he only played 10 games, but put up 411 receiving yards. He averaged over 40 receiving yards per game as a rookie tight end. And at that time last year, now we had Sam Laporta do it last year. I'm not sure about the others, but at that time last year, when I was talking about this, he was one of just 6 tight ends to average over 40 receiving yards per game in a rookie season. The others were Kyle Pitts and Evan Ingram, Jordan Reed, Aaron Hernandez, and Jeremy Shockey since 2000. Like, those are all really good players. I do think he has high upside. I think he has a lot of talent. He has to stay on the field, and he could be one of those really sneaky guys that are going undrafted that maybe, either you take him with your last pick if you're punting the position, or you just keep an eye on him on waivers is probably the more likely route.
Yeah, he's probably the best value pass catcher. There's not much value you're getting from Courtland Sutton. I mean, Tim Patrick is a hard investment. You look at the rookie Troy Franklin, that's a hard place to go because there's a bit of a crowd at that position. And the Broncos receiving core is so messy that anyone could emerge. And maybe just like the Patriots, like 2 terrible offenses where in the end, a Greg Dulcich or Hunter Henry could be the guy that we're looking at most to produce in those offenses. So, yeah, don't totally sleep on Greg Dulcich. He's got a lot of physical talent. Just because he got hurt, don't totally keep him off the radar. The Broncos haven't given up on him yet either. Now, Josh Jacobs is hurting, nothing to be alarmed with, has a bit of a growing injury, has missed practice. But interesting battle. I think we all assumed that Marshawn Lloyd would be the backup. But A.J. Dillon is holding his own. They brought him back late in free agency. He's hanging around, Michelle. Probably not great here if we're trying to figure out the handcuffs with Jacobs. So that's going to be the tough thing and something we're going to have to monitor. Maybe it's just a committee to replace him should Jacobs be out.
This is the thing. This is what we were talking about on the running back show. 3rd round running backs or like 3rd round players in general and later, like they're just not going to beat out solid veterans. And AJ Dillon may not be good, but he's a veteran and he's just not going to beat him out right at the start of training camp or even at the start of the season. Like maybe throughout the season, he can start to show when he comes in, bigger plays are made. AJ Dillon, we know exactly what he is. But of course, the team's talking up AJ Dillon and saying how good he looks. But he's a veteran. He's going to get the nod as RB2 until Marshawn Lloyd gets on the field and proves you can't take him off, right? He's going to have to make those big plays. He's going to have to show it during game time and kind of force these coaches to put him in. But Lloyd's also been missing time with injury. He just got back. So we'll see what happens there. And then Deonta Foreman had a scary injury yesterday in practice for the Browns. It was a head injury. He got taken to the hospital. He was able to leave the hospital last night. He's going to join the team. So it sounds like it's going to be okay, but a really scary head injury for him. He's probably going to miss a good amount of time here. And then also Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, says he does not have a timeline for when Nyheim Hines could return to the field. He tore his ACL before the season last year. So it really sounds like Jerome Ford is sitting there alone right now. And he's going so late in drafts. And when he was the starter last year, or when he took over for Nick Chubb, weeks 2 through 18, he scored the 14th most fantasy points among running backs, despite only having 4 rushing touchdowns. He's a really good value. He doesn't have top 12 upside, but I mean, there was many weeks he finished as a top 12 guy or a top 20 running back on the week. Yeah, he's just, if you're doing that, like you're waiting on your running backs, right? And you're waiting for your running back 2 or running back 3, Jerome Ford is a really solid option.
Yeah, I don't like using the 0 running back term, but I think the 1 running back is a better strategy where you look to get one of those workhorses if it aligns with your picks early. Then you come back and wait because there's so many committee approaches. And then we've talked about some values. Javonte Williams as an RB3 might outdo that number. Devin Singletary could do that, but there's a good chance maybe a Brian Robinson Jr. would do that, right? So there's different guys that you can target. I think Jerome Ford would be one of those guys. Now, Nick Chubb, the timeline looks iffy at this point. I think if you grab Ford, you're going to have to grab Chubb not too long after.
I don't think so. I'm not grabbing Chubb. I'm just grabbing Ford.
You can do that.
I'm going to roll with him until Chubb is back.
If he's your third back, I think that's fair because you don't need to handcuff your third back, right?
Yeah.
If you're taking him as an RB3 and you're not sure about the Chubb timetable, and you just want to avoid that situation, you absolutely do that. So you're right on that. When you're in RB3, you don't need to look at, okay, I need to have back up the situation. No, you've already backed up the other 2 guys you took at RB1 and RB2 with this particular pick, right? So I like that, where you can add and then go into that direction. Now you can also say, I'm going to wait and just take Jerome Ford and just say, I don't need kind of a traditional RB2 value that's on the board according to the rankings. I'm just going to wait here, get Ford, get what I can get from him, and know that'll be stronger at wide receiver or tight end or whatever you chose to do instead. So I do like the value of Ford. I mean, he looks like he could be an easy RB2 if all these injury situations around him continue.
Yep. I love this value for him. We will hit on more news as we get it throughout next week, but that's it for today's show. Thank you to you all for listening to our episode and listening to us all week long and making us the first listen every day. So everybody enjoy your weekend, and we will have some great episodes for you next week. Bye, y'all.